Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric series Who's Nintendo Suing or Screaming this week, but the tables have turned. The Uno reverse card has been played because it is Nintendo taking a massive loss on this one. That is because just recently one of their patents at the heart of the Palworld patent case that regards monster capturing techniques has been invalidated by the Japanese Patent Office. This was basically one of the three patents at the center of Nintendo suing Palworld, trying to say that they were using something that Nintendo had created, and honestly, I've been saying in videos since the start that absolutely made no sense whatsoever, that there was hundreds upon hundreds of games, cases of prior art that would just basically make this patent invalid because it really didn't innovate on anything like that. And even though a lot of commenters told me I was fear-mongering or clickbaiting in the actual comment section, I told you guys and guaranteed it that at least one of these patents was never going to hold up in court or even at the patent office because it made absolutely no sense why Nintendo was issued it in the first place. And that bird has come home to roost because that patent is now invalid. Now I want to be clear about something. This is still in process, and it is possible that Nintendo could appeal and convince somebody to reissue that patent. This is not a final decision, but it is a very bad look for Nintendo because now their court case has even less teeth to it, and before it basically was wearing dentures. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And before you leave the comment that I don't like Nintendo, I will tell you right now, I own every single Nintendo piece of hardware ever made. I think they make incredible games, but as a company and business practice wise, when it comes to legality things, they absolutely abuse the court system to try to push down their competition. So I have no issue with Nintendo the artist, if that is a term, but I have a big issue with Nintendo the business practice company. But you'll see here a lot of different instances of prior art were mentioned as far as this patent, and that is why it was invalidated. That is because games have done exactly what Nintendo was trying to patent first, and they did not innovate on it. They did not create anything new. They just basically patented something that already existed, and that is how you get a patent invalidated very quickly. You need to show to the courts that you've done something new, not just basically repurpose something that existed. And while not every example of prior art I used in my previous videos was referenced in the actual dispute with this patent, two of the games I did mention, Ark as well as Monster Hunter 4, were mentioned in that prior art defense. And that's the thing, I know some people thought I was just making this up, but I can assure you I have a lot of work history both in patent and copyright law, having dealt with it in entertainment and business as well as sports. So it's one of those things, the minute this was actually talked about and I started talking about it, I said that there's so many different games you could point to say this has been done before by another developer, by another team, and it should not receive a patent. And you guys all left comments in the comment section basically giving me hundreds of other amazing examples as to how this was done. And then Nintendo tried to basically make the claim that mods should not be allowed to be submitted as prior art, which is one of the most ridiculous claims I have ever heard of when it comes to patent law. It is just not true. It is the court equivalent of a child who's 8 years old playing a board game with his parents trying to change the rules in the middle of the game because they know they're losing and they really want to eke out that win. As far as this case with Nintendo is concerned, right now they are just taking the pipe when it comes to actually being able to try to win this thing, because Ark definitely defended the prior art example as well as Monster Hunter 4, and again, these are just games that were submitted to kind of contest that patent. You could have submitted probably 200 other games and probably still gotten it invalidated, because honestly capturing something in the playfield or throwing something to affect the game world around you is the most generic thing since basically press A to jump. And that is why from the beginning it seemed like Nintendo wasn't really worried about what Palworld was doing technologically wise. They were worried that Palworld was eating their lunch and cutting into their Pokemon sales. Because if we're being entirely honest, the most recent Pokemon games have not been received that well. Yes, they have been fun. Yes, people enjoyed them, but there's always talk about it kind of feeling like a little bit of a stale formula. So it kind of seems like Nintendo decided if we can't outcompete them in the development process, and we can try to outcompete them in the courtroom to see what we can make stick. And honestly, that really isn't something I enjoy whatsoever. Make the best game you can and let it compete on the open market. And that's just something that a lot of other people, not including myself, have said as well, including people that work as lawyers in patent, basically said that this is one of the dumbest arguments ever made, that modifications can't be considered as prior art. Nintendo's basically just trying to make the rules up as they go along and see what they can do, whatever they can do in fact, to stack the deck in their favor so they can win when they should definitely lose. And that's just kind of sad, and it is a bummer, but it is a good thing for the gaming industry in general, in my opinion. And even though this is not finalized yet, we still have a lot more steps to go before Nintendo potentially loses this entire thing. Getting that actual patent invalidated definitely works, because again, Nintendo's trying to rewrite the history of gaming. Imagine if mods were just basically considered to not exist from a copyright perspective. A lot of games get their start as franchises as mods, and like I talked about in a previous video, you could say that everything's a mod. A game engine would be the source software, and any game you build on top of it could be considered from a legal definition a mod, because honestly the original piece of software is the engine in and of itself. Or maybe the mod would actually be software running on the hardware. Once you start going down that rabbit hole, you realize that anything could be called a mod if you wanted it to. And other games, including Craftopia from actual Pocketpair itself, it is funny that Pocketpair was able to use their own work as prior art defense and actually get this patent invalidated on the Nintendo side of things. But I've never seen, and I can't stress enough, an argument that makes so little sense as far as that mods not counting as prior art thing. Just think of it this way, basically every piece of art, every piece of entertainment is in some way, shape, or form built from something else that came before it, at least on the inspiration side of things. That would mean that basically every single platformer outside of the first platformer ever made would be, and you can't see me but I'm doing air quotes, a modification, because it's basically taking a concept and doing something different with it. And honestly, even if you love Nintendo, this is a court case that I think, in my opinion, you should root for them to lose, because it could absolutely stifle innovation in gaming for basically a generation to come. And I understand I use big language in these videos and I sound dramatic of what the effect could actually be. And I know not everyone's going to believe this, but I am not here for clickbait. I am not here for fearmonger. I'm here to actually tell you that if Nintendo was somehow able to win this court case, it really would basically push down innovation and make it so that a lot of people wouldn't want to go anywhere near something that was even similar to something Nintendo did, because they would be even further emboldened to sue anyone out there for something that they considered even close to their games. Because we know, and we've known for a while now, that Nintendo is a very litigious company when it comes to doing things in court. They do not care, they will do anything they want. So this is kind of, in a good way, a nice taste for Nintendo to understand that what they say is not the law, it's not the gospel, it doesn't automatically win in court, because this thing getting invalidated is an example of Nintendo pushing too hard and not really having a good defense. Because these things, especially in the Japanese environment, they kind of sometimes defer to the Japanese company or to the more legacy company. Now that really isn't a court or law related thing, it more is a social thing, but it's one of those situations. The fact that Nintendo lost this patent in their home country of Japan really is telling as to just how weak of a claim this truly was. And again, the prior art examples, you could have put anything in here. You could have put Madden in, for all things, a ball thrown into the environment that affects the world around it, and you still would have been able to do that. And interesting, I also found an article with a former Capcom designer talking about that nobody should buy Palworld because Palworld basically violated some sort of line in the sand. And that was the weirdest thing ever, especially because Monster Hunter 4 invalidated that patent in part. So it seems like that one person there absolutely loves the taste of boot heel. But all jokes aside, I was just kind of very confused by that, how people are deferring to Nintendo, even though, obviously, at least with this result, we know that they are factually wrong in this one patent. And it really is as simple as that. Nintendo is stating in their patent application that they have created something or innovated on something that is brand new in the gaming sphere. Nobody has done it before, and they deserve protection of their innovation or creation. And I agree with patent law in general. If you create something new, if you innovate something that no one's ever seen before, you deserve a patent on that. But what Nintendo was saying that they made it basically was absolutely not upheld by this actual patent review, because they lost their own patent. That means that this body in Japan found that Nintendo didn't create anything new, they didn't innovate on anything that already existed, they just applied for a patent for game mechanics that already existed in other games not created by Nintendo. Now, I'm not going to call that theft because it really isn't, but that's basically the closest word you can think of, is picking something up that you didn't make and saying, I made this, and then trying to get legal protections for it. And this was basically one of the biggest of the 3 patents at the center of the Palworld lawsuit, which means that Nintendo is not only on the ropes right now, they are getting a standing 8 count, and we have to see whether they're not going to be able to continue with this one because, again, losing your own patent in Japan, your home country, and being Nintendo the corporation really means that everyone realizes this case really doesn't have much merit whatsoever. Now, that doesn't mean Nintendo's going to stop. It doesn't mean they're going to try to actually appeal that and get somebody else to re-grant the patent. We're just basically at the wait and see stage. But it's one of those things. Nintendo has just basically been stating, I made this, and the actual patent office found out, actually, you know, you didn't make this. Hundreds of other people made it before you, and you can't have the patent because you didn't do anything new. So that's the current information as far as the Palworld lawsuit is concerned. And again, I know some people always say that I'm just making things up, but if I'm making things up, why is it that everything I say is going to happen somehow magically does happen? At some point in time, the 1% of you that don't believe I actually know what I'm talking about might get converted over to realize that I actually do know what I'm talking about. But it is the internet, so I don't believe that. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.